On today's video, we're going to be finding the house that I used to live in Alabama. Recently, Google Earth came through and they put my old neighborhood where I used to live in Alabama on High Country Road. It is now on Google Street View. Before, this wasn't on Google Street View, but a month ago they came through, and now the street that I used to live on in Alabama is on Google Street View. So we'll be taking a look at the area where I lived at in Alabama. We're going to start off by the house where I used to live on. What I lived through in Alabama, you'll know that this is a very crazy place. There are two particular neighborhoods in Millbrook, Alabama that are considered the worst. One of them is High Country Road, where I used to live, right here. Now, I actually worked in this whole area. Let's see if they actually ran through here as well. But this is called Sandtown, and Sandtown is the most notorious area in Millbrook, Alabama, this neighborhood right here. And you can tell that the photo has been updated. You can make out my fence that I installed around the front of the property. You got one neighbor here and one neighbor here, and you've got mobile homes across the street. You can see there's a fence line that I installed around the front of the property. And you can see that my vehicle, my pickup truck, my white truck, is parked on the driveway. Notice that it's not parked straight on the driveway. It's almost parked at an angle to block the view of the home. And my property actually used to go all the way back up to here. All this area in here was considered mine. Excuse the background noise. They are building a house next door, and there's not a lot I can do about the people working. So as you can see, I installed a fence all the way around the property, and there's the home where I used to live in. You can see it's got a brand new roof. When I bought the house, it literally had a hole on the roof. You can see it's got a brand new roof, and you can see that I fenced in the property all the way through. There it is. There's the mailbox that I installed. Really nice mailbox. Beautiful rocks that I put around the mailbox. So there's a home that I used to live in Alabama, and you can see that I had to fence in the property. You can see there's a fence all the way around the property for privacy, because our neighbors were not really the best neighbors you would want to have. In fact, it looks like they continued the fence themselves. So this section of fence you see here wasn't there when I sold the house. So these neighbors have probably already had trouble with these guys here. As you can see that they continued a chain link fence around the back. And though it's not perfectly installed, I just put it up together as quickly as I could, because we were having trouble with these people. And it looks like they're having trouble as well, because they continued to install a fence, probably for a small dog. As you can see around the front of the property, you can kind of not see the front of the house, but you can see that they installed a fence, looks like for a dog. There, you can see they're still using my old fire pit. You can see some pallets piled up there. So they're in a gas can, so they're still using the fire pit that I installed. But you can see that they've put a fence on this side of the property. I don't know why they didn't do it in the back, but they decided that they wanted a dog in the front of the property. You can see the cameras that I installed. Well, the reason I installed the fence is because the people on this side were really a lot of trouble. In fact, these people that own this property here are actually registered offenders. You can tell also that I put these giant trees. I actually moved these trees from the backyard. It was a tree that was behind the house. You can see the clearing there. I cut the tree down, and I brought the logs up here to keep the driveway from washing away. You can tell it's kind of steep and the driveway's washing away. So I did that to keep the driveway from washing away. But you can see they have been using the fire pit, a gas can out, and these people were not very friendly about how they went about buying my house. They were actually tried to destroy the house, basically, in order to acquire. So I hope that they're blessed in their efforts in the future, since they treated me pretty badly. They were the worst nightmare buyer situation you could have had. Really don't like what they've did with the property. I had it a lot nicer than that. But there's the other side of the fence, and you can see that on this side the neighbor pretty much has this going on. So if these garbage cans you can see here used to be my garbage cans, I actually worked inside the fort, and they gave me, not fort, the base, whatever you want to call it. But you can see the guy next door, what he's got going on here. just a lot. You can't even see his house basically from the road. So that should just give you kind of an indication of the vicinity. You can see the fence I put on this side as well. Notice I left large gaps at the bottom of the fence. I didn't really install this fence with any real effort to make it look good. I just wanted not to have to look at this every day and not to deal with these people on the other side. There's a beautiful lake right here, a giant lake here, which I never got to fish it, not even once, because the people were so hostile they never let me fish it, even though I just lived right there. This lake on private property, which I heard stories of huge bass and stuff like that, was never actually able to fish that lake. You can see all the no trespassing signs everywhere, so that should just give you an indication. All the no trespassing signs should just kind of be an indication of the type of neighborhood you're dealing with. So that's the street that I used to live on, and there used to be a mobile home right here on top of this hill. And the story goes that the mobile home burnt down because they were growing. There was some type of operation going on in there. When I first moved into this neighborhood, there used to be a giant mobile home here that had burnt down, and it was just a burnt down mobile home, abandoned burnt out mobile home right here. But it actually was cleared off eventually. The story goes that there was an illegal operation going on inside of the mobile home, and the reason that the mobile home burnt down was because there was an electrical failure. So. Then you have this across the street right here. You can see there's a burn barrel here. And there's the green and brown garbage cans. Now, when I lived here, this guy here, I gave him a bunch of garbage cans. And just like the other guy had garbage cans, these are not City of Millbrook garbage cans. These are garbage cans that I gave them all. I gave them all a bunch of stuff. But this guy here, he actually has a fire pit around here somewhere. There it is. And he actually tried to burn the garbage cans that I gave him as a sign that he didn't appreciate anything that I did for him. One day they decided to got drunk and decided to burn the garbage cans. But you can see that both neighbors on both sides have these garbage cans that I gave them. You can see how there's garbage outside the garbage can. They just throw their garbage on the floor. There's a burn barrel here, some more garbage there. You can see again no trespassing signs in all directions. Just about beware of dog, which they don't really have a dog, but beware of the dog. You can see there's garbage piled up in front of the mobile home. Just there's work equipment here, but this in the time that I lived here, none of this stuff ever moved from this property. All this work equipment there, it's just sitting there. And 1 year that I lived in that house, I never once saw anybody work that equipment. So right here, the city limits ends. You can see because the city abruptly stopped their paving right where the city limit ends, but they still sprayed. You can see when they sprayed all the way to the end of the street. They grinded it down and they sprayed all the way to the end of the street. But then when they came back to put the asphalt down, I guess the people that sprayed didn't know where to stop. But then they put new asphalt right up to here. But I was back down at the bottom of that hill, so they didn't give us anything. So this is another neighbor here. You can tell he's got, these are solar panels. Now he had cameras here somewhere. You can see there's a sign there with a weapon on it saying no trespassing. He's got a bunch of dump truck tires, a bunch of equipment, and a bunch of just random crap. This pipe's actually been laying right there. It's just like that since I used to live there. So that's just been sitting there forever. And there's actually cameras on this property somewhere in the front. I don't know where it's at right now, but he's actually got cameras hidden. It might be inside of these things. He like drilled it out and he covered the cameras, but there's actually cameras on this driveway, and they're kind of hidden inside of something in here, but there's actually cameras right there. All through these woods there's cameras, and they're kind of hidden in places and stuff like that. You can see they have a lot of equipment and junk and farms and stuff, but all these areas here have cameras hidden all throughout them. So there it is. There's a tour of the street where I used to live on. I don't even know how this made it. There's that lake I was telling you guys about that I was never able to fish. And I could actually, from my house, from my backyard, my yard was kind of up on a hill, and I could actually see this lake, but I was never ever able to fish the lake. And there's actually a creek running through these mountains. It was kind of like at the end of a dead-end street, but on the way there, I never ever saw anybody living in this house, so I think this house is just used for storage. And again, the theme of just junk everywhere. On the other side, behind my house, you had, even though it was far away, this guy here, they got goats. This is where you would turn into my street where I used to live. You can see there's like a bunch of farms and stuff, and there used to be goats here, but I think they got rid of them. And in fact, the fence is gone, so obviously the goats are gone. A tree fell during the tornado, and it broke down their fence, and they still haven't fixed it. Just imagine owning a piece of property, and the fence falls over during a tornado, and it never gets fixed. Now, there's a small stream that starts right through here from the ground, and it goes all the way along the back of that, and there's actually water flowing through there. It's a creek that starts right around here, and it just goes that way, and it always has water flowing through it because they're within city limits. So you can see the road's paved here, so it's within city limits, so they're not allowed to shoot. There's the street sign right there. The people behind my house, I really couldn't see them because you can see how far away it is. But it looks like the street view car made it right to about here, and there's actually people living here. Here, these are the people that were behind our house. Now, I could never see these people at all because they're on the other side of the hill. But on the other side of the hill is this property here. You can see they got 2 garbage cans from the city of Millbrook. Private property, no trespassing, but there's no actual house. You can see a structure here. It might be a shed, but they're actually just living in that camper. So the people behind us, they weren't really living. This is the next street over in Hillcrest. They weren't actually living in a house. From what I could gather, they were actually living in a camper. So, and there used to be a bunch of cars and stuff here, and they sold it. So this used to be just covered in cars. You couldn't even see this trail before. It was just covered with old cars and stuff. Like the whole front was nothing but old cars, and then behind the old cars, they were kind of living in a camper. It looks like somebody's still living in a camper there. And then there's a house way back at the end. This beautiful natural setting. This was the entrance to Hillcrest to get to high country. And there's kind of like a creek on the side, but you can see there's a lot of litter here. And we know exactly which neighbor did the litter because for a while he went to a drug rehab center. And while he was at the drug rehab center, the litter disappeared. But so we knew specifically which person it was who did this. But you can see that even though it's a beautiful drive into our neighborhood, even though it's an absolutely beautiful drive to the neighborhood, at the absolute most beautiful part of it all, there's a neighbor who would just every single day you can see a TV in the ditch right there. I mean, even though it's this beautiful, beautiful natural setting, every single day the neighbor would litter right here at this spot. He would bring his garbage here and litter it. And again, we knew exactly which neighbor it was since when he went to the drug rehab center, the litter disappeared. And then when he came back out, it reappeared. So we knew exactly who it was. And this person had the habit of every single day he would litter right here. And he wasn't eating very healthy. It's usually potato chips, Mountain Dew, and just hot dogs from the gas station. It's just really bad stuff. But you can see how much TVs and just garbage there is into this creek. And you can actually see the water flowing right there. So you can see the water flows through this creek. And we would drive through here every single day. This is how you got into our street. And, well, there it is. That is where we used to live in Alabama.